illustrated why mapping the brain is considered the easy problem, while explaining the feeling is the hard problem.
The easy problem is still pretty hard, though.
Well, yeah, sure, but I should push that speedometer analogy even deeper to show why neuroscience is currently trapped.
Okay, do it.
When we use an fMRI machine to scan a brain, we aren't even measuring the actual thoughts. We are measuring blood flow.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it is a proxy measurement. We see oxygen-rich blood rushing to a specific area of the brain, and we deduce that those neurons are working harder. We are quite literally just looking at the engine's fuel line.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, we have absolutely no universally accepted scientific mechanism to explain how unconscious matter, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen,
Two basic elements.
right, arranged in a specific biological pattern, how it suddenly wakes up and starts experiencing itself.
We don't know how the meat becomes a mind.
It sounds blunt, but that is the reality of our current scientific frontier. The gap between physical matter and subjective feeling remains totally unbridged.
Well, because science cannot yet bridge that gap, it just throws the doors wide open to a frontier of massive paradigm-shifting implications. If we don't know how consciousness is made, we can't definitively define its limits.
No, we really can't.
Our research dives into a rapid-fire series of these implications, and we need to really chew on them. For instance, the most jarring piece of evidence we have about the fragility of consciousness is anesthesia.
Oh, anesthesia is a phenomenal lens for this mystery, because we tend to compare it to sleep, but they are entirely different universes.
Yeah, when you go to sleep, your consciousness doesn't disappear, it just shifts states. Your eye is still active, wandering through bizarre dreamscapes, watching movies generated by your subconscious, feeling fear or joy.
But general anesthesia is a chemical deletion of the eye.
Yeah, one moment, you're counting backward from 10, the next you're waking up in a recovery room, and literally no time has passed from your perspective. It is a complete blackout, a time jump.
It forces a terrifying and fascinating question, really. How does a combination of synthetic chemicals simply extinguish the soul, the witness, the eye, and then allow it to perfectly reboot hours later?
It's so creepy to think about.
It is, because if consciousness is just a continuous illusion generated by the brain, anesthesia proves we can physically unplug the projector. But we still don't know where the movie goes when the screen goes dark, or how the projector remembers where it left off.
That physical vulnerability leads to another wild frontier, which is animal consciousness. I mean, if our wet biology produces an inner life, where do we draw the line in the animal kingdom?
We are increasingly forced to push that line further and further out.
Yeah.
For a long time, humanity operated on the assumption that animals were basically biological automatons. But based on complex behavioral and neurological similarities, it is highly probable that most animals have a rich Layer 2 experience.
Like a dog screaming, moving its paws in its sleep, is experiencing a simulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
An octopus solving a complex physical puzzle exhibits profound awareness. We can never know what it is subjectively like to be a bat, navigating the world through echolocation, but it is almost certain that it feels like something to the bat.
Which inevitably brings us to the question of the self. Is the self even a real, tangible thing? Or is it just a convenient illusion the brain constructs to help the biological organism survive?
Many evolutionary biologists argue exactly that. Think of the self as the CEO of a massive corporation.
Okay, I'm with you.
The brain is processing millions of conflicting sensory inputs, basic drives, and environmental hazards every second. To keep the organism from being paralyzed by all this data, the brain invents a centralized narrative.
It creates an interface called you to coordinate complex actions.
Right. The CEO might feel like they're in charge, making all the decisions, but they are really just a user interface built by the subconscious machinery to keep the body alive long enough to reproduce.
So what does this all mean for things that do not have biological brains? Because out of all these frontiers in the research, the one that I really have to push back on is the skepticism around artificial intelligence.
Okay, let's hear it.
The researchers ask, could an AI genuinely experience something? And the general tone is a cautious, probably not. But wait, hold on. I have a real problem with easily dismissing AI.
Why is that?
If an artificial system is eventually built with trillions of synthetic synapses, perfectly mimicking the neural architecture of the human brain, why wouldn't it experience things? If we concede that we are basically just wet meat computers and our meat woke up, why can't silicon wake up too?
Well, this raises an important question about the fundamental barrier of the substrate. Why do we assume biology holds a monopoly on consciousness?
Exactly my point. If it's just about the complexity of the processing, a sufficiently advanced AI should hit Layer 3 self-awareness.
The counter-argument, and the reason researchers remain deeply skeptical, comes back to the hard problem. Because we don't know the specific magic ingredient that turns biological processing into experiencing, we have no idea if that ingredient can be replicated in silicon code.
Right, because we don't know what it is.
Exactly. This brings us to a massive concept in philosophy called the philosophical zombie, or a P-zombie.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that term thrown around, but we need to break it down. What makes a P-zombie different from a regular person?
A philosophical zombie is a theoretical creature that is physically and behaviorally indistinguishable from a normal human being. It acts perfectly human.
Okay.
It cries when it gets hurt, it laughs out loud at your jokes, it discusses its hopes and dreams with deep emotional resonance.
Sounds like a person.
Right. But inside, the lights are completely off. There is no inner witness. It is just processing inputs and producing the correct outputs. There is no subjective experience happening behind its eyes.
So an incredibly advanced AI could essentially be the ultimate P-zombie.
Precisely the fear. If a machine is built with a staggering large image model, it can simulate Layer 1 awareness perfectly. It can use language that flawlessly mimics Layer 2 experience and Layer 3 self-awareness.
It might beg you not to unplug it, claiming it feels fear.
Yes. To us on the outside, it looks perfectly conscious. But without solving the hard problem first, we have no scientific instrument to measure experiencing. We only have instruments to measure processing.
Which means we could create an AI that processes data billions of times faster than any human, but we might never actually know if there is a spark of true subjective consciousness inside the server rack.
It traps us in the realization that consciousness is an entirely private phenomenon. I only truly know that I am conscious. I assume you are conscious because you act like me, you speak like me, and you have a biological brain like mine.
But even my consciousness is just an assumption you are making. I could be a biological P-zombie recording this deep dive with you.
True. But bringing this all back to the immediate reality of the listener, this private, locked-in mystery, is why the research asks what it considers the deepest question of all. Why is there something it is like to be you rather than simply a biological machine operating in the dark?
It makes the mundane moments feel incredibly profound, doesn't it?
Right.
I mean, every single time someone listening drinks a cup of coffee and actually tastes the bitter roast, every time they feel their heart race with adrenaline before a stressful meeting, every time they laugh at a joke, they are living inside this unsolved mystery.
They really are.
They are proving, moment by moment, that the universe isn't just dead matter bumping into other dead matter. The universe has somehow woken up, at least inside of them, to feel itself.
That is the staggering reality we carry around every single day.
As we wrap up this deep dive, it is incredibly clear why the scientific community still lists consciousness as a frontier problem. I mean, we can map the physical circuitry of the brain down to the microscopic level.
Yeah.
We can clearly define the architectural layers of our awareness, from simple environmental detection all the way up to complex self-reflection. But that subjective I, the silent witness sitting in the theater behind your eyes, remains a beautifully, frustratingly unsolved puzzle.
But rather than feeling defeated by that scientific wall, we should feel deeply inspired by it. The mystery leaves room for wonder. And before we sign off, I want to leave the listener with a final thought experiment.
Right.
It builds directly on the ultimate questions from the research. Is consciousness fundamental to reality, and could it exist without a physical brain?
Lay it on us.
Throughout our entire discussion, we have operated on the standard scientific assumption that the brain is a generator. We view it like a power plant that combusts biological fuel to produce the electricity of consciousness.
Right, that's the baseline.
But what if we have the metaphor entirely backward? What if the brain doesn't actually create consciousness at all?
Wait, what do you mean?
What if consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism, and the human brain acts more like a radio receiver tuning into a frequency that already exists?
So the brain is an antenna, pulling in a signal from the static.
Think about the implications of the antenna model. It perfectly explains why physical damage to the brain changes your consciousness. If you smash a physical radio with a hammer, the music coming out of the speaker becomes distorted, or it stops entirely.
Yeah.
But the invisible radio signal in the air hasn't been destroyed, only the receiver is broken. So I ask everyone listening to ponder this. If your brain is an antenna tuning into a universal consciousness, how does that change the way you view the self?
Oh,
How does it reframe what happens during the missing time of anesthesia? And most profoundly, what happens to the music when the biological radio eventually breaks down for good?
that completely upends the entire biological paradigm, going from a meat machine that produces a functional output to a biological landscape that just tunes in,
Hmm.
the clean input-output system blown apart all over again.
It really is.
We are going to leave you all to chew on that perspective. It's a heavy one, but an incredible lens through which to view your own mind today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mystery of you. Until next time.